Hi everybody, how's it going? Yeah, I'm here to talk about upgrading your Postgres, and not only Postgres will thank you, but also PostGIS. So I hope that all of you here are also PostGIS users, so that the stuff that I'm talking about is a bit technical at times, so that you can follow. Yeah. So yeah, I work as a database engineer at Zalando. It's Europe's, I would say, a leading online fashion e-commerce platform. We are in 25 markets in Europe, not yet in Kosovo, but maybe one day it will come. So we already reached like Croatia, Slovenia, and Romania. And at Zalando, I'm part of the database team, the Postgres as a service team, and we manage around like 3,000 database clusters on top of Kubernetes. So 2 years ago at PostgIS, I've also given a talk about like how we do this. And today this will mostly focus about upgrading Postgres, because as you can imagine, with like 3,000 separate database clusters, it would be a nightmare as a database administrator if you would not have like great automation in place. So my team came up with a tool called Patroni. I don't know if you've heard about Patroni. It's an open source solution for Postgres to provide you with high availability, and it's becoming now the sort of like de facto standard in the industry. So if you want to go high available with Postgres, you will probably do this with Patroni. And we also came up with this Postgres operator tool, which is like a small controller in Kubernetes, which allows you to provide like database as a service tooling for multiple teams. So for example, at Zalando, if you're an engineer and you want to create a new database, you don't have to talk to me. You just write a short manifest file, submit this to Kubernetes, and then everything spins up automatically for you. In 1 minute, you have the database, backups, and everything. And you can change it later on. You can also remove it on your own. And you can also upgrade it on your own by just changing the major version. And this talk will now tell you why you should do this every once in a while. I would say maybe at least once a year. So I was thinking about doing a short question game, but I don't want to dispose anybody here if you're still using Postgres 10, but just be alarmed. Unfortunately, this is not like, it's a PDF, so the siren is not spinning, but luckily we have some wind, so it's a bit dramatic at least. So Postgres 10 is end of life since last November. And Postgres 11, if you're still using it, will be end of life this November. And what does it mean is, it's open source software, but it doesn't get any more updates. The developers are concentrating on the new releases and creating and developing the future releases. And so so this is not supported anymore, and in November Postgres 11 will also not be supported. So if you are using PostGIS, so then I hope at least you will be on Postgres 12. So I think the stretched text still looks okay. I will quickly go over the last releases over the last years, so that to convince you more to do an upgrade. So I hope that you are at least using Postgres 12, because this was the version that made it possible for PostGIS to use parallel queries out of the box. So when you install PostGIS and you write some queries, they can be parallelized by the planner of PostgreSQL with Postgres 12. Also, the deserialization of geometries got a lot more efficient with Postgres 12, because there was an API to allow to do a quick bounding box check before doing the serialization from the disk. And what another big feature was reindex concurrently. You will see on the next slides why this is an important feature also. Down here, you see these nice little signs here. Of course, with every new release, there can also be some breaking changes. And before you just run blindly into an upgrade, you should first check if there are some breaking changes, if they affect your code or your application code. And you have to first find some detours for this. So that's also something you have to make sure every time you do an upgrade. Usually there are not many breaking changes, but it can be like there's this one feature that you have used before and now they dropped it in Postgres, so you have to be aware. Okay, so Postgres 13. This was the big release for the B-tree indexes. So of course we are here at the spatial conference. We have a lot of spatial data in our Postgres database, but I would still think that you still have more B-tree indexes to do search on like numeric and text columns. So yeah, B-tree indexes got smaller and faster with this release. So that means after the upgrade, you have to re-index all your B-trees, or like all your databases would also be good. So this is also something that you would have to do sometimes with the spatial indexes, that you just have to re-index all your spatial indexes, because the PostGIS developers thought about, okay, now we have come up with a new plan for the gist index, for example, a new storage method. And yeah, so that's why re-index concurrently from Postgres 12 was such an important addition. So of course, with every Postgres release, I mean, they always tell you like it's faster now, it improved in so many ways. There are usually some core features which got like here parallel support. In this case, it was vacuum for indexes. And in case you're using multi-column indexes, OSM people looking at you, maybe. This also now has incremental sort support in Postgres 13. Okay, coming to 14. 14 was quite important for us because we have, like in production, we automatically always have a high available setup with one primary instance and one replica, at least one replica. And in the past, it could happen that if you overload your primary with a lot of writes, that your replicas start lagging behind and behind, so more and more. And with this release, now the recovery speed was greatly improved. So this was not more likely to happen in the future. That scenario where your primary gets overloaded and your replicas cannot follow. If you're a fan of using materialized views, 14 also had a good improvement here that you can refresh them in parallel. And also the Postgres people created a new method for gist indexes to build them faster. So, and of course, PostGIS developers jumped straight at it and said, okay, now because it's usually a big pain point for PostGIS that building spatial indexes takes so long. And with this new method, it became like, I don't know, 8 times faster or something. But unfortunately, the query speed was worse after that. So building was faster, query speed was slower, unfortunately. So this was fixed with Postgres 15. So if you now install PostGIS on Postgres 15, gist indexes will be able to build faster. Not as fast as with 14, but yeah, they had to fix some things that the query speed remains the same. Yeah, there was also some improvements for window functions. So if you're looking at the new features that will come in the next PostGIS version, it has some very cool, neat features for coverages, which are window functions. So I hope this will also benefit from this improvement for sorting speed of window functions. And yeah, and if you have backups, there's also now a server-side compression for backups, which makes this faster. Yeah, and I think I should also note this one here. So I know that when you're new to Postgres and PostGIS, you happily start your server and start creating stuff in the public schema in Postgres. This will not be possible any longer in Postgres 15. So there is now, like, they have removed this privilege from the public role, so you cannot go there and just create stuff in the public schema. You have to grant the privilege to do so. So be aware if you have some migration scripts that are relying on this functionality that it was possible. Okay, so a quick glimpse into the future. Postgres 16 will probably be released this autumn. So every autumn there's usually the Postgres release. So one of the key features that I picked out was like some great improvements for logical replication. But I don't know if you are using logical replication, probably not. And but the second item here, that the copy command got around like 300% faster, and I think this is like a great news for everybody who is like usually doing bulk imports of spatial data into Postgres. But yeah, my favorite feature, if you ask me, is the first one. If you have like your SQL where you have a subquery in your from block, you don't need an alias anymore. I really love it, but I don't know about you, but it's my favorite feature. Okay, so this was, of course, I was only scratching the surface. So I was picking out stuff that I thought you find interesting for the last releases. There's a great feature matrix on the Postgres homepage where you can, if you scroll down, there are loads of features that they list here, and then they show you like which version supports which feature. And I think this, if you scroll and look at this, it makes it even more convincing for you to run an upgrade. So there's here also the PostGIS support matrix to see is like the new Postgres version supporting which Postgres version, and you see here like the newest Postgres will not support Postgres 11. So if you're still on 11, want to use the new functions in PostGIS, think about upgrading. You see it's a sliding window, so it's probably the next PostGIS will not support 12 anymore. Okay, and now to the question, how have we automated the Postgres upgrades? How to do this? What are the single steps that you have to do? There are basically 3 ways to do a Postgres upgrade. So one is the hard upgrade, the soft upgrade, and you can also do this with logical replication. So hard upgrade means you dump all your data into a file and then you restore it in a separate server. Like if you think about like database downtime, server downtime, that might sound a bit stupid, but if downtime isn't an issue, then it's still a viable approach. I mean, I did major version upgrades 10 years ago like this. Because I did not want to fiddle around with like creating symlinks and running into errors with the soft upgrade, I just dumped everything with dump all and then restored it into a new server. So you can still do this. And whenever maybe the internal storage format of PostGIS will change, maybe then this is the only way you could do this. So between PostGIS 1 and 2, you had to do this because they changed the internal format. They did it too between 2 and 3, but it was still possible to do the soft upgrade, so fortunately. So in this talk, I will focus on the soft upgrade, because there you just install everything like on one server, and then you have just one tool to upgrade everything, upgrade all the files, and it usually runs in like a few seconds, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and then everything is upgraded. So that's, of course, in terms of downtime, way better than doing the hard upgrade. Yeah, replication is probably provides you the least downtime, but it also has some constraints when it comes to the setup of logical replication. Like sequences, I think, are not supported. You have to copy them manually. But maybe this will also become more convenient in the future. Okay, so for the soft update, the quick summary looks like this. So you install all the new Postgres version, the new PostGIS version, and then you run this pg upgrade command with the link option. You can specify here the old data directory, your new data directory, old bin directory, a new binary directory. And when this is done, in your database, you run this command alt extension PostGIS upgrade, or if you have more PostGIS, if you are using more PostGIS extensions, you can use select PostGIS extensions upgrade. And you have to do this now for every database where you have PostGIS installed. So it's not like when you run pg upgrade, automatically you are using the new PostGIS. So it's still an extra step you have to do for your extensions, not only PostGIS, also other extensions. So for the installation part, you install the new Postgres version, the new PostGIS, which is built against that Postgres version, and then also this scripts package, at least for the Linux distribution. And then your setup is fine. If you're still on PostGIS 2, I don't know, is there anybody still using PostGIS 2 here in this audience? No. Okay, then we can skip that part, because there you had to do some tricks with like symlinks and so on, but fortunately this is not necessary anymore, because now the new PostGIS 3 is only having the major version in the library name, so not the minor version. Because previously it was usually a bit tricky to do these upgrades. And if you're using sfseagull and you're still on versions 3 or older, you also had to like drop that extension because the library was separated from the main PostGIS. Okay, so when you run PG upgrade with this link option, why it's so great? Because it's creating only hard links between your PG data directories. There's no copying of data, so if you would not use link, then all the data would be copied from one data directory to another. And this would, of course, require that you have the same amount of free disk space that your database is big. So if you're using link, only links are used. And also one thing that is really great is that the downtime which occurs during the upgrade does not depend on the database size. So if your database cluster is 1 gigabyte big or 1 terabyte big, the downtime can be the same. It only depends on the number of objects in your database, not like the data, but tables, types, functions, and whatsoever. So if your database has 1 million schemas, then the upgrade will take longer, but it doesn't depending on the data size. Okay, I have to speak a bit louder. So what do you have to do when you want to automate this PG upgrade process? So here are I'm listing now all the steps that our script is doing. So first, of course, you could only run the upgrade if your cluster is healthy. If you have replicas, you have to check if they are streaming and not lagging behind. Are there not any bulk imports running at the time you want to do the upgrade? I mean, this sounds obvious, but still. And then on the same server, you create a new PG data directory within a DB. Make sure that you are using the current configuration. Like, don't just install the new Postgres with default shared buffers and workmem and so ever. So you could just copy these values from your current configuration. Of course, you still have to use some paths that are pointing to the new directory, data directory. You cannot use the same path there. And you also have to check for incompatible extensions. So don't just, when Postgres is released, yay, I can go do the upgrade. You have to, of course, make sure that the new PostGIS is already there to support this new Postgres version, or maybe if you have another extension like timescale, sometimes you have to wait a bit longer until this extension is also supporting the new Postgres version. And the last point here is you can also run PG upgrade check. This is just a dry run. It will only tell you, okay, upgrade is possible or not. That's it. So you can run this and it will not change anything. It will just tell you if upgrade would be possible or not. Okay, then for the upgrade, there could still be, you should check in your code if you have some functions that are using maybe stuff in Postgres which has changed. So then if you put this all into a script, you should remove this stuff and then add this after the upgrade. And yeah, when you go into the upgrade, you have to, of course, stop your Postgres servers. You call PG upgrade link, and if this fails, you have, of course, to undo all the stuff that you have maybe done in point 1 or on the previous page. If you have dropped already some things, you have to re-add them after a failed PG upgrade link command. If PG upgrade link succeeds, then it's the point of no return. So if you then have upgraded and you realize, oh shit, the performance is pretty bad and things fall apart and I want to go back to the previous major version, it's not possible anymore with your server. It's only possible if you restore from a backup. So if you want to be really secure, you should have done a base backup before you run the upgrade, and then you can still restore from this backup, and then you're back on your old major version. But there is no functionality in Postgres that say PG downgrade or something. It's not there. Okay, so when the PG upgrade is finished, you can rename your data directory, because you remember there are 2 data directories on your server. You have to adjust the Postgres config so that all the paths are correct and pointing to the right libraries. And in case you have replicas, you can also upgrade your replica servers just by using rsync. Maybe there are different ways, but we found rsync to be the most convenient for us to upgrade replicas, and it's also like a matter of seconds, because it's just the files that have to be updated. And yeah, and last but not least, I mentioned all the stuff that you might have to drop because of some breaking changes. This you have to re-add in your script. Okay, and last but not least, the cleanup. So everything is done, upgraded, your cluster is upgraded, yay. You should run, you should update the table statistics. So there's this vacuum DB tool that you can run. And you can remove your old PG data directory and initialize a new base backup. So this was now very, very short. And you can find here behind these links, or if you just search in the internet, and you will also find greatly detailed descriptions of how to upgrade Postgres. Also like a huge fleet of Postgres clusters. Okay, so how is the user experience at Zalando? How do teams upgrade their Postgres clusters? So as I said, they only have to update one number in a manifest file. So here you can see there is this is what our teams have to do when they want to create a new database cluster. Just a few lines, and then here in the version field they just changed 14 to 15, and then yeah, we have this Kubernetes operator which then rotates all the pods and kicks in this upgrade script and upgrades the cluster. So we can also configure this globally. We could say now all the databases that are still on 12 or older should be upgraded to version 15, for example. That's something we could also do. We're not doing this in production, but it's something we could configure with our tool. Okay, and the last slide. So the conclusion. We found, so you know, before we had this automatic major version upgrade, we had to do this manually. We had to agree with the teams for a matching time slot to do the upgrade. And we had to, like, stopping the service, running the upgrade script. This was all manual stuff that we had to do. And this led to, like, teams delaying the major version upgrade. Sometimes when, you know, when teams approach us and thinking like, oh, my database performance is really bad, and we are looking like, oh, you're still using Postgres 9.6 or 10, then we usually recommend them to upgrade, but that's, if it's not very optimized, it's a topic that teams like to delay in their backlog. So, yeah, but after this automation, now we see like teams are really adopting it more, embracing it more, and upgrading now more regularly, more frequently. Like once a year they run the upgrade because they want to use the new features. And of course, when there is a new Postgres version, it's not that like my team makes it available for everybody immediately. We usually wait 1 or 2 minor releases before we say to the teams, okay, you can now go with this in production. But yeah, when there is a new release, we usually, in our test environment, it's already there immediately, but yeah, in production, we usually wait a few minor releases. And this is also something that if you have maybe more critical databases, also something that you should do. Because still, I mean, Postgres is pretty robust, but it can be that maybe, yeah, there are some bugs, some performance degradations that are found, and then, yeah, you don't want to run into this. But you could run into this if you test. So everything that I have explained here, you should always test this. So when you upgrade your database cluster, first in a test environment, make this one run with PG upgrade, see if everything is compatible, the performance is good after that, and then you can apply this for your production database.